of Israel, their lives were chronicled for those whom the ends of the earth come upon. So we always need to be looking when we have a challenge in our earth's history. We need to always look at the children of Israel because they are our example. And so they had plenty of messages on health, the children of Israel did. So we want to look at the lives of the children of Israel. We'll refer a little bit back to them. The Lord said, had the Israelites obeyed the instruction they received, Ellen White said this, and profited by their advantages, they would have been the world's object lesson of health and prosperity. The Lord doesn't want us to just tread water or run parallel with the world. He wants us always, his people, to be head and shoulders above everyone, the other organizations in the world, not as important individually, of course, but he wants us to be able to show that we can live in prosperity when we follow God's health laws. If as a people they had lived according to God's plan, they would have been preserved from the diseases that afflicted other nations. Above any other people, they would have possessed physical strength and vigor of intellect. I think of Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, who, when they followed the health laws, they were 10 times stronger and more intellectual than all of the other eunuchs. So I'm going to go back a little bit to Battle Creek Sanitarium because that's where things started in a big way in the natural remedies, in the hydrotherapy. So this was under the direction of Harvey Kellogg, and what a glorious beginning for God's natural remedies. The success stories of the time were so numerous. Even in the Spanish flu, they had many miracles because of the way that they used the natural remedies to heal people. But many famous people were even successfully treated at Battle Creek Sanitarium, like Amelia Earhart. The sad part is that the sanitarium burned down in 1902, most likely as a judgment from the Lord. As Kellogg took less and less counsel from Ellen White, he wrote the book, The Living Temple, which was officially published in 1903. The Living Temple, I think, burned down in 1904. So, or 1902. 1902. Okay, so he was in the middle of writing the Living Temple, which we know was definitely a false teaching. So the Battle Creek Sanitarium relied on holistic biological living, diet, exercise, and natural therapies instead of, I got this from AI, instead of modern medicine's disease-specific approach. The SAN avoided most drugs in favor of hydrotherapy and strict vegetarianism. Modern medicine uses pharmaceuticals and targeted medical procedures to fight germs. So this is AI that gave me this description here. So, but unfortunately, Kellogg deviated in other ways too. He started bringing in the allopathy, which was against the counsel of Ellen White. Allopathy is huge in the world today. It's huge amongst our Adventist hospitals. It's huge against, it's in line with our hospitals. It's in line with a lot of the things that we're doing today because it's all we knew. We were raised doing this. We get sick, we go to the doctor and get prescribed a medication. So this is what we know, but it was not in line with the counsel that Ellen White was giving Kellogg. Let's see what she wrote to Kellogg. But in no case are you to stand as do the physicians of the world to exalt allopathy above every other practice and call all other methods quackery and error. For from the beginning to the present time, the results of allopathy have made a most objectionable showing. There has been loss of life in your sanitarium because drugs have been administered, and these have given no chance for nature to do her work of restoration. Drug medication has broken up the power of the human machinery, and the patients have died. Others have carried the drugs away with them, making less effective the simple remedies nature uses to restore the system. The students in your institution are not to be educated to regard drugs as a necessity. They are to be educated to leave drugs alone. And so here we have this terrible quandary, and we didn't do the education. Kellogg should have taken that opportunity to educate. And that's what she counsels doctors today to do, is to educate. From beginning to end, the crime of tobacco using of opium and drug medication has its origin and perverted knowledge. As much science as we have under our belt, this is what Ellen White says. She didn't say just in the beginning. She says from beginning to end has its origin in perverted knowledge. What could be that perverted knowledge in the face of all this science? The perverted knowledge is one simple thing. It doesn't heal the body. It only affects a symptom. Plus, as I've mentioned in previous sermons, side effects, contraindications, they will always be there. Okay, so we know that it burned down, the sanitarium burned down. Kellogg took that opportunity to restore it with the money that he made from the Living Temple. And so the sanitarium was no longer owned by the Adventist faith. It was owned by Kellogg, who went completely out of the Adventist faith, which was what a loss for what it could have been. So then we have, I want to bring up the Loma Linda messages, which this is available for anybody to read about the history of this history that I'm bringing out here. Sweetheart, if I go wrong, would you correct me, please? I do not want to go wrong. Okay, so there are two Loma Linda messages. One was compiled by one of them was compiled by the White Estate, and the other one was written by John Burden. And so as my husband was reading through the history, he found out that there was some missing work in the Loma Linda messages that was compiled by the White Estate. So he started looking at the different things that the reasonings why these letters were left out. And it spelled out a little bit of a different story than the one we know. Okay, so I want to deviate here just a little bit just to let you know that when it came to modern medicine, it began with the Rockefellers. We hear that nowadays, also Carnegie, which they got together with a gentleman by the name of Abraham Flexner, and they concocted a way to bring modern medicine into the forefront by saying bad things, giving false stories about the natural remedies, and they were able to bring modern medicine into the forefront, and they made billions and much money by doing this. Okay, so then let's see, John Burden. Let's see, I think I erased too much here. Sweetheart, I was going to go to your. Okay, so we know that that we had a false beginning. So as we go forward, here we are right in the middle of this with now Loma Linda. Now, Loma Linda, A.G. Daniels was the president at the time. And he asked the question on medical school resolution. He says, okay, before I do this one, excuse me just a minute. At the time Loma Linda was put on the market, John Burden, an elder and leader of the Seventh-day Adventist Church, he was Ellen White's right-hand man. At the request of Mrs. White, was looking for a place to expand Adventist training centers for our medical missionary work. When he reported to Mrs. White about the property at Loma Linda, Mrs. White was immediately interested, as the description of the property matched what God had given her in vision in regard to the institution that would replace Battle Creek Sanitarium in Michigan. So this is where John Burden comes in. He plays a huge role in Loma Linda University. Okay. So in comes A.G. Daniels, and he asks the question. He's the president at the time, the GC president, and he asks the question, I would like to inquire what this contemplates. Does it contemplate a college that will grant medical degrees and diplomas to be presented to state boards and be used by our medical missionaries in their endeavor to qualify for foreign lands to practice there? Does it contemplate the establishment of a full-fledged medical college that will be recognized? So you see what's on the table here is they're trying to decide whether we should join leagues with the American Medical Association. A.G. Daniels, the president, is pushing for it. So is Willie White. Okay. That will give students a preparation for graduation that will be recognized by legal bodies such as the American Medical Association. You must know it It must have such recognition to be worth a nickel. So again, he was going against the counsel of the spirit of prophecy. He didn't believe that the sanitarium, as it was doing the wonderful work that was happening at the sanitarium, it would not be worth a nickel unless they joined leagues with the American Medical Association. This is one of the letters that was left out in one of the messages. Ellen White said, she addresses this, my spirit is stirred within me when I see the efforts made, even among our people, by professional men to cry down and demerit every medical practice in the treatment of disease, except the one method of allopathy, which they have learned. I will not fall into line with this thing. But I will say, in the name of the Lord, let the drugs fall into disuse and practice upon hygienic principles. It is not in God's order to educate the people to depend upon drug medication. Physicians who believe present truth need to make advanced moves in reform. So, think about drug medication. I don't think that I'm telling you guys anything that you don't want when it comes to the fact that we are going to be coming through some difficult times, and we need to all be reaching for that opportunity to get off drug medications if we can. So I work with people, they all want to get off medications. And so I'm always looking on my computer to see what this drug does, the contraindications of this drug and that drug, because they come in with a sack of drugs. They don't know what they do. They don't know the contraindications. And so I help them understand what they have, what things to communicate with to their doctor. And so this is the way we work to try to get people off of drug medication. We're going to be coming into difficult times when we can't buy or sell. And so I'll address that here in just a few minutes. So the question of recognition by the legal bodies was, of course, brought up, but we thought we should seek the recognition and approval of God rather than the world. John Burden was on the side of Ellen White. He was her right-hand man and moving away from the legal bodies. The question of recognition by the legal bodies was, of course, brought up, but we thought we should seek the recognition and approval of God rather than the world. So as we look at what he said, he wants to do whatever God says because he knows it'll be successful, even though it looks like it won't be worth a nickel. So John Burden was very powerful in helping Ellen White. After she was in Australia and she moved back to the United States, she called for him to come and do some things to help. Loma Linda, again, we have come to an issue with the world. The issue is between the everlasting truth of God and the standard of the world. This is John Burden. This we know is true in religious matters, and it is equally true in matters of this kind. There is no true education except in the gospel of Christ. It takes in all truth. We shall, of course, expect to start in a very humble way and grow gradually to the standard he has set, but we must make a beginning. The promise is that he will be with us if we obey him, and he will cause us to ride on the high places of the earth. This John Burden, he understood what was happening. He understood what the Lord can do when we don't see a way. He understood. E.G. Daniels then gave in long details why Loma Linda should follow the path of the world. And in the middle of it all, he gave a simple statement in which his whole discourse revolved. A.G. Daniels, we must render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's. We hear that today. Is that our job to surrender our soul temple to the world because they believe that we need to do this or we need to do that? No, that is not part of what we surrender. We surrender the coin, we surrender our money that is required, but not our soul temple. So we should not, A.G. Daniels was trying to bring this up as a point that we need to be bringing in. The American Medical Association. So this is the crux that's going on. After all discussion was given, a vote was taken on John Burden's resolutions and the motion was passed. The motion that passed was that the resolutions would be sent back to the committee. The directions John Burden and the committee presented to the main board was not acceptable, thus the agitations began. We think we have controversy today. They had controversy in those days, and it was about the health message. Today, we're having some agitation. It's about the health message. So we need to know what the issues are, not so we can be controversial, but so we know where to stand. We all need to be able to stand in a good standing before the Lord. This meeting was in late 1907. Rockefeller and Carnegie had only recently begun their new adventure into the medical arena, and it was still 3 years before the Flexner report was to come out. Okay, so this is the paper that came out around that time, because the AMA is just they're just clearing their throat, ready to get into the things that they do. And so this is the Southern Practitioner, and they posted this law, which we would fall under one of these categories, where we would not have had to sign with the American Medical Association. First one, we would be, these three certificates will be issued by said board under the seal thereof and signed by the president and the secretary. So we could have been grandfathered in by these three clauses. We could have chosen one. First one is a certificate authorizing the holder thereof to practice medicine and surgery. The second, a certificate authorizing the holder thereof to practice osteopathy. Osteopathy has they're sectioned off, aren't they, honey? And three, a certificate authorizing the holder thereof to practice any other system or mode of treating the sick or afflicted not referred to in this section. So we could have done it. We could have stayed the course, but we didn't do it. The first part of the law was for physicians who were going to practice medicine and surgery. So we could have fallen under one of these and still been able to hang on to our independence. Applicants for a certificate to practice any other system or mode of treatment not in this act referred to shall be subject to the above regulations, except that in place of the diplomas hereinbefore referred to, they shall be required to file a diploma from a legally chartered college of the system or mode of treatment which the applicant claims or intends to follow. So again, they gave strict guidelines for how we could apply, and we could have still gone on with our missionary college. After a student graduated and received their diploma from Loma Linda, they would have to go to the state board and take another test proving that they were efficient in the fields of anatomy, histology, gynecology, pathology, bacteriology, chemistry and toxicology, physiology, obstetrics, general diagnosis, hygiene. And once they passed this test, they could legally practice in the state of California. And as goes California, so going the rest of the states. The osteopaths certified in California, for the most part, were able to go to any other state and practice. And John Burden reasoned that the graduates of Loma Linda could easily do the same. We could have done the same, but we didn't do it. So John Burden says, California has thrown the door wide open for us to organize a medical school after our own principles. The only restriction is that all students entering shall have a high school preparation and shall pass the state board in 10 fundamental medical studies. And that would be perfectly fine. We want them to be educated. We're all for science, but we want the right science. Sister White has again and again said to me in connection with the development of our work here in Southern California that we needed to get back to first principles, that our medical work is farther from the truth now than when we started. And we who have studied the outworking of the situation at Battle Creek certainly must be convinced that a perversion has come in. Now, with such an opening before us and with the instruction from the Spirit of God, it seems to me it is rank unbelief to hesitate, because we cannot have a medical college that will meet the standard of the world. Why are we hesitating? And then he says again, because of the position I have had to stand in the medical work in Southern California, my mind is deeply exercised, and I can but feel that our brethren, general and local, are missing the mark in their duty toward this question of the medical school. Every time it is mentioned, their thoughts seem to run immediately to the question of how we can compete with the world and its facilities for research and investigation. So, owing to the importance of the enterprise at Loma Linda, now this is back to A.G. Daniels, he's pushing again. Owing to the importance of the enterprise at Loma Linda, it was voted by the General Conference Committee that Professor Homer Salisbury, then Educational Secretary of the General Conference, should go with me to join in the brethren in Loma Linda in drafting the Articles of Incorporation. So they were preparing. They were voted in by the board to go ahead before the AMA and before what was his name? What was the name of that guy? Anyway, he was head of the AMA, and it was time for him. Here we go. Here it is right here. As we were passing through Chicago, we stopped to interview Dr. Caldwell, the secretary of the American Medical Association. It would be necessary to be approved by the organization if we were to conduct a medical school. So they were starting, this begins their pushing Burden out because he did not have the same values that they had. So they started to get rid of him. So he went to the AMA now. He brought a different guy with him to the AMA, and they signed the paperwork. This is what A.G. Daniels did the following year. In his words, he writes, A.G. Daniels had made up his mind that the Seventh-day Adventist Church should be incorporated with the world. He used his influence to bring this about. And he took Professor Homer Salisbury with him to do this paperwork. A.G. Daniels says, as we were passing through Chicago, we stopped to interview Dr. Caldwell, the secretary of the American Medical Association. It would be necessary to be approved by this organization if we were to conduct a medical school. So again, he's pushing, it's going through. When we laid before Caldwell our plans, he told us most frankly, yet kindly, that we could never succeed. The AMA wasn't even pushing for us to join. The pushing came from our own internal leadership. When we laid before Caldwell our plans, he told us most frankly, yet kindly, that we could never succeed. He reminded us that it would require a very large sum of money to provide buildings and equipment for such an institution. Further, he questioned our ability to assemble a faculty such as would be required. So that was like saying sick 'em to a dog when it came to, I don't mean the pun, but that challenged A.G. Daniels to go forward even more. He explained that at the very time the American Medical Association was engaged in eliminating all the C grade schools throughout the country, that they were putting pressure on the B grade schools. They were trying to get rid of the C grade schools. Our aim, he told us, is to retain only the Class A medical colleges. He felt sure that we could not possibly hope to establish anything higher than a C grade school, and advised us not to proceed with the undertaking. So the AMA actually advised them not to join. For the next 2 years, the leaders of Loma Linda wrestled back and forth whether they should operate under that state law or whether they would seek accreditation from the AMA. During this time, the Flexner report was released, which promoted the AMA and had its desired effects on some of the main leaders of Loma Linda. John Burden says in conversation, he was having a conversation with that same director, and he asked the following question. Will you tell me, doctor, to what school we can send our young people to equip them for this world mission? He was wanting to keep the medical missionary along with the medical. If we do it, can we keep the medical and joined in with the missionary part? And here's what he said. Will you tell me, doctor, to what school we can send our young people to equip them for this world mission work with this preparation by joining? He replied that there was no such school in existence. Then I said, do you propose to destroy this little medical school that we are seeking to develop that is in no way competing with your endowed medical colleges, but is our only means for supplying our missionary program with consecrated missionaries to carry forward our work? And his answer was indirect. He said, Mr. Burden, when I took my medical course, it was to become a medical missionary. And I asked, did you go to the mission field? No, he said, the medical got me and the mission lost out. And Dr. Kellogg was finding this very same thing happening. Dr. John Kellogg has said to us frequently, send us young men to learn to become doctors, and we will do the best we can for them. We can do this. But these men come out fully fledged allopaths and deeply set against any other manner of practice. So they were doing their own investigation, Kellogg did not. He wanted to send these doctors to. Um, he wanted to send them to Ann Arbor, and they were coming back fully fledged allopaths and no desire to do anything for the natural remedies. Now, my brother, I cannot, this is Ellen White. Now, my brother, I cannot harmonize this manner of treating the question with the light the Lord has been pleased to give me. I have been shown that there has been a large number of deaths and a great number of sufferers left upon the earth to drag out a miserable existence under the allopathy practice than under the other methods of treating disease. But like Sunday keeping, its age and name has stood as the only true scientific method for treating disease. Were these leading men, or rather A.G. Daniels and Willie White, really in the dark as to the right thing to do? Sometimes we come to the Lord with an agenda asking him to bless what we've already decided in our heart. Ellen White actually gave plenty of counsel against joining with worldly organizations, but for some reason, they couldn't hear her voice. Now we can go back and we can see plenty of counsel that she was giving them, but they weren't seeing it. They were not listening. Ellen White goes on to say, my spirit is stirred within me when I see the efforts made even among our people by professional men to cry down and demerit every medical practice in the treatment of disease except the one method of allopathy which they have learned. I will not fall into line with this thing, but I will say in the name of the Lord, let the drugs fall into disuse and practice upon hygienic principles. It is not in God's order to educate the people to depend upon drug medication. Physicians who believe present truth need to make advanced moves in reform. I think it's important at this point to make sure that nobody's here to feel guilty. This is not to shame anybody for taking medication. This is just for us to understand the state and where we're at and where we need to go. And I'm going to provide some things that will be helpful to that as well, that I hope will be helpful to you. Okay, is God indifferent on how we heal our bodies? And this is a beautiful quote that I quote fairly often. There are many ways of practicing the healing art, but there is only one way that heaven approves. God's remedies are the simple agencies of natures without side effects that will not tax or debilitate the system through their powerful properties. Pure air and water, cleanliness, a proper diet, purity of life, and a firm trust in God are remedies for the want of which thousands are dying. Yet these remedies are going out of date because their skillful use requires work that the people do not appreciate. Fresh air, exercise, pure water, and clean, sweet premises are within the reach of all, but with little expense. But drugs are expensive, both in the outlay of means and the effect produced upon the system. So we have, again, the counsel from the Lord on that. So back to Loma Linda, John Burden says, I answered exactly, and that is where we will fail unless we can develop such a school as this, so that we may impart to our students the medical missionary inspiration as well as the scientific preparation. So we don't want to, if we had stayed, if the sanitarium, Battle Creek Sanitarium had stayed the course, they were learning things about how to heal the body that we look back on now, because we're like, wow, that was pretty cool how they were doing that. They were healing thousands of people and they had learned a lot. What if they had stayed the course? Where would they be today? That would be the world's object lesson in prosperity. I think of the head and shoulders that God wanted to impart to ancient Israel. He is always seeking to bring his people up to higher principles. But they could not do this if they could not join the missionary school with science. Before departing that afternoon, Dr. Colwell told our leaders at Loma Linda that in view of the type of work they were doing, preparing missionary workers, they did not need AMA approval. So they were told, the whole board, he went before the board, and they were told that they did not need AMA approval to do what they were doing. It just wasn't good enough. Deuteronomy 7:6 says, for thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. Know therefore that the Lord thy God, he is God, a faithful God, which keepeth covenant and mercy with them that love him and keep his commandments to 1,000 generations. Thou shalt therefore keep the commandments and the statutes and the judgments which I command you this day to do them. Wherefore it shall come to pass, if ye hearken to do these judgments and keep and do them, that the Lord thy God shall keep unto thee the covenant and the mercy which he sware unto thy fathers. God's desire is to bind up the medical missionary work with the third angel's message. A lot of people think that the health message is separate from the third angel's message. A lot of people think the health message is separate from the Decalogue, but they are united, because thou shalt not kill. People are killing all the time with things that they eat. And again, I don't monitor people's diet. I'm too busy. My husband and I, it's a challenge every day to eat the right things, do the right things, have the right lifestyle. So we're working on us. Everybody else has to work on themselves. Someone comes to me about their health, well, I'm happy to help them with their health, but I do not stand in judgment of people. I think every person is precious, and we need to encourage each other instead of looking at what everybody's eating and what they're not eating, what their pharmaceuticals they're taking, what they're not, who got vaccinated, who didn't get vaccinated. We need to be united in that and make sure that people do not feel judged. Okay. Health reform is to do among our people a work which it has not yet done. So the best is yet to come. Ellen White had foresaw that there would be wonderful things happening in the holistic world. Soon there will be no work done in ministerial lines, but medical missionary work. It will give us access to people. Their hearts will be touched as we minister to their necessities. I can't tell you how many times I've heard sermons where a pastor will get up and throw the health message under the bus. So many times. And it's always a health message. It's never the Sabbath or something else. Did you know you can't go to heaven by eating a piece of cheese? And always something like that. It's never, you can't go to heaven by keeping the Sabbath either. That doesn't mean we don't try. That doesn't mean we don't make it a priority in our life. Eeks, honey. Okay, never mind. I got it back. So let's see, where were we? Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Joanna, should you come here for just a minute? Okay. I think it resumed slideshow. Okay. I think I got it. Sorry, I accidentally pushed something.
Is it showing up?
Is it? Okay. All right. But it's not the it's not the, it's missing that over there.
I see.
Okay. Well, I'll just go forward without it. Slideshow. Resume slideshow. Maybe it's under here.
Yeah,
there it is. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Sorry, guys. So for the pastors who like to throw the health message under the bus, it doesn't offend me, but it does offend the Lord. Ellen White says, beware how you place yourself in opposition to the work of health reform. It will go forward, for it is the Lord's means of lessening the suffering in our world and of purifying our people. How does our health message purify us? The only way I can think of, it's the only thing you can't get away from. You can get away from opium or whatever addictions you have, but you can never get away from our need to have food. We have to always modulate the quantity, the quality, the frequency. And so therefore we have this challenge always in front of us, and that's why we need the Lord's help. So that's the sanctifying power of the health message. Health reform is to do among our people work which it has not done. Okay. So I want to talk just a little bit about force, because in the last 6 years, we experienced a lot of force when it comes to our own body. Our job is to take care of our body and not so much other people's body. In God's plan of government, there is no employment or brute force to compel the conscience. We also, the exercise of force is contrary to the principles of God's government. He desires only the service of love, and love cannot be commanded. It cannot be won by force or authority. So when people, one of the first things we know when the Lord is not in something is if there's force, we know that the Lord is not in it. We are experiencing today subtle intrusions of force in Medicare and pharmacy. Medicare, you are forced in things there. Force in vaccination, force through lack of availability, and the list goes on. And it's going to get worse. It will soon be force of worship. And they will begin first with the things closest to home, our food, our water, pharmaceuticals. This is going to require much prayer on behalf of God's people. So what are the characteristics of pharmakeia? I'm just going to quickly, I'm just going to quickly go through just a couple of the characteristics, because we know in Revelation that it talks about the merchants of the earth and the sorceries. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. So a lot of times we're deceived in believing when we take drug medication that it's actually going to heal us. And in reality, it just gives us an extra burden for our body to get rid of. So the characteristics of pharmakeia is A, sorceries. It gives the impression of deception with a sinister occult motivation behind it. B, pharmaceutical drugs suppress symptoms. So if your symptoms are gone, guess what? That means we're well. C, Big Pharma has conflicting interests. Their interests are not for your health. Their interest is to line their pocketbooks. D, many drug medications hinders a person's communication with heaven. I have plenty of people that come in and they are on different drugs that has affected their thinking, and getting them off those drugs can be very difficult. Number E, pharmaceutical drugs are built on empire profiteering. So we want to make sure that we are not, that we understand exactly what pharmakeia is. It doesn't wear a white coat. It's something completely different. Ellen White says, we are not excusable if through ignorance we destroy God's building by taking into the stomach poisonous drugs under a variety of names we do not understand. It is our duty to avoid all such prescriptions unless our doctor says we should. Is that what it says? No, it says it's our duty. It's our duty to know what we're putting in. If we are on a medication, it's our duty to know the side effects. It's our duty to know exactly what we're putting into our mouth. I am determined to know in straight English the name of everything that I introduce into my system. So this is what Ellen White's practice was, to know absolutely everything that she put into her system. So this is the way the Lord felt about it. On one occasion, Christ anointed the eyes of a blind man with clay and bade him go wash in the pool of Siloam. He went his way, therefore, and washed and came seeing. The cure could be wrought only by the power of the great healer, yet Christ made use of the simple agencies of nature. While he did not give countenance to drug medication, he sanctioned the use of simple and natural remedies. So think about this sentence again. While he did not give countenance, that means approval. He did not give approval to drug medication, but he sanctioned, which means he put it into law with an attached penalty for its violation. So is there an attached penalty to drug medication? There is, and it's called contraindications, side effects. So to give countenance to something is to give approval and admit as acceptable or possible. And then to sanction something means a threatened penalty for violating a law or a rule. So the Lord put this into law. He didn't drug medication. He did not give approval to it. And again, no need to feel guilty. It just shows how far we have slipped from the ideal. And I understand because I was raised in that same world. So I understand. When my mother and my dad died, they were both died with a whole tray of medications. And I am fully convinced that they will be in heaven because they did the best they could. They were taking everything that they were doing, everything as far as natural remedies, and the Lord loves them very, very much. But remember that you are bought with a price. Therefore, glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's. And know you not that ye are the temple of God and the Spirit of God dwelleth in you. That's why we're the soul temple. That's why it's our job to take care of that soul temple. If any man defile the temple of God, him shall God destroy, for the temple of God is holy, which temple you are. God promises to stand by his laws. God has established the laws of nature, but his laws are not arbitrary exactions. Because every thou shalt not that he says in the Bible, whether in physical or moral law, that implies a promise. If it's obeyed, just like with the children of Israel, blessings will attend our steps. If it is disobeyed, the result is danger and unhappiness. The laws of God are designed to bring his people closer to himself. The laws are meant as a blessing. The 10 commandments were given as a blessing to us, not to make life difficult for us. He will save them from the evil and lead them to the good. And if they will be led, but force them, he never will. He will never force. And as I mentioned earlier, the third leading cause of death in America is properly prescribed medication. I'd say that's close to a pandemic because we have other diseases, but this is the third leading cause. And you can Google it or put it on AI. And this is where I found this information just this morning. But when we give something up, what do we have to do? We have to find a substitute. We can't just give something up when we get off of drug medication. We have to taper. We can't just give it up. And we have to get a healthy body so that we just naturally don't need those things anymore. Remember that the Lord is not pleased with ignorance in regard to his laws, either natural or spiritual. We are to be workers together with God for the restoration of health to the body as well as the soul. The Lord was a wonderful teacher when he was on earth. He always taught, and he's willing to teach you. The Bible says that if we'll do his will, we'll hear a voice behind us say, this is the way, walk in it. When we turn to the right hand and when we turn to the left, we need his counsel. But the reason why he doesn't speak a lot of times is because he knows we will not be listening. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. That's why Ellen White said to educate, 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 because now we're behind, because we went the wrong direction. Now we're behind. And the times of ignorance God winked at, the Lord's been winking at our ignorance on the health message. But now commandeth all men everywhere to repent, which is what I do every day. Lord, I did this, I ate this, I shouldn't have done that. That didn't sit very well with me. And there are things in my life I wish I could go back and change. But we go forward with the Lord's help, and he gives us counsel. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. This here is snippets, which you will not be able to see, and I can't see it either. But it's all the different things that I put in a compilation of the things that Ellen White says about drug medication. And this is just a portion of it. So she was sounding this great big alarm in her day, and the alarm is still sounding. We're playing it out. And the Lord does not want us to be sick. He does not want us to be ill, but he wants us to understand where our health comes from. It does not come from drug medication. So I'm going to give you 5 steps to freedom. I know I've given them to you before, but I want to give them to you again. So here's the 5 steps to freedom. Number 1, begin by laying out your case before the Lord. He's a wonderful counselor. He's a wonderful person to talk to. He's a wonderful confidant. Lay it out before him. Write everything down. Request an answer for each individual drug medication that you are currently taking, and ask him to show you how and if you can be free from this drug. Also give him all your preconceived ideas. In full faith, he can do exceedingly abundantly above all you ask or think. The Lord can help you through this situation. Number 2, remove the lifestyle and dietary violations that you are aware of and ask God to reveal to you the violations you are unaware of that are keeping you sick and hooked on medications. So take it before the Lord. And a lot of times when I'm talking to somebody on the phone and they're telling me that all these different things that they have going on, if I listen long enough, they're going to tell me absolutely everything that they need to give up. I don't have to say a word. All I need to do is encourage them to do just that, which I do. I try to encourage people. So remove those dietary violations and ask God to help reveal to you the dietary violations that you're unaware of. Sometimes people are doing something destructive and they don't know. They might be allergic to something, or whatever the case, they might be getting a product from the store. And now in the store, we're coming up in with bioengineered ingredients and things like this that we have to be super cautious about. So we're living in perilous times. Don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged. Always go forward every day, 1 minute, 1 day at a time. Okay, so the third thing is never stop taking any medication suddenly or without doing the needed work to get healthy. Rather, as a result of making the needed changes, when you start getting well, the symptoms will subside and medications will become necessary so that you could be able to get off of them. So that's another very important one. Number 3. Number 4, ask God to make you willing to do your part, whatever that entails. I remember when I had the lump in my breast and I had a heart arrhythmia and I had terrible digestive issues. I couldn't even lay down beside my husband in bed. I told the Lord, I will do whatever you tell me to do. Just don't turn me away. And remember, Lord, I'm hard-headed, I'm hard-hearing, but just don't turn me away. And he honored that. He listened. I pretty soon got on his channel and I realized that the Lord was speaking to me. And once I started listening, that he knows that he can speak to me and I will listen and I will do. Whatever he asks of you, be willing to be his vessel to accomplish his will in your life. Just be willing to listen. If the Lord knows you'll listen, he will speak. And number 5, lastly, continue to maintain a healthy diet and lifestyle no matter how bleak things may look. Remember, the Lord is the great healer, and he rewards us for those activities that we do. So this is coming to the end here. In this speck of a world, the whole heavenly universe manifests the greatest interest for Christ, paid an infinite price for the souls of his inhabitants. Just remember, if you're not willing to do this for yourself, remember that you have to do it for the Lord because he already bought you and paid for you. The world's Redeemer has bound earth to heaven by ties of negligence, for the redeemed of the Lord are here. So as a church, we stepped aside from the Lord's will, but that doesn't mean we have to step aside individually, and we can make our way back. I did, and the Lord is willing to do that for you if you won't get discouraged and don't give up. He said, the thief come not but to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for his sheep.
Amen.
Thank you for that wonderful message, Sister Linda. I think that a lot of us, I mean, myself included, we fail a lot, especially like she mentioned, this is a culture that we kind of grown up with. And I thank you for that last 5 steps, because when we realize that the Lord has the power to take care of us, and we surrender everything to Him, I think that's wonderful.
Amen.
I have to stop that before we start we can sing. So, but I invite you to find in your hymns, in your hymn books, hymn number 100. Great is thy faithfulness.
We do that.